So I wanted to ask you, Jason, why is this important to you? What makes you passionate about this? Because I can tell in talking to you that this is something that you've been enjoying.
Well, there's a number of things that grab me about it. I like the fact that a struggle like Jimmy Norman's, a struggle with misappropriated royalties, and a struggle over copyright is something very pertinent to today. I mean, this all has unfolded in the age of Napster morphing into controversy, morphing into iTunes, morphing into Spotify, morphing into more controversy over tiny royalties paid via Spotify. And you can kind of see this reiterated, repeated theme of artists being kind of the last ones on the chain to get their due. And there's inevitably the folks who put together the means of production that attempt to squeeze the artist to the extent possible. And even though Jimmy Norman might not have known the term MP3 by the time he passed at 74, he had his own version of a pirated MP3. His pirated MP3 was a set of lyrics that he scrawled on a napkin, pretty much. And you get to see how, even though basically the players change and the means of how they live is changed over the course of time, you cannot escape the fact that the basic story of artists create something valuable, that value is squeezed from them over and over again. And this goes back a good long while. It's a very old story, but I like the fact that you can look at modern day news and look at themes of what came out of struggles like his and see this is just establishment against artists over and over and over again.
I wanted to ask about a tour you actually have coming up, and I don't know if I mentioned it before, but you've spent a lot of time in Helsinki, Finland, and you have a tour that you're lining up.
Yeah. Part of how we intend to tell the rest of our story and how we intend to shoot the rest of our footage is by bringing a group of musicians in this demographic. Most likely we'll have performers that will be based in New Orleans. We have opportunities with musicians in New York and New Orleans, but we know that we need to combine them in a way that they will naturally fit and that their geography and their calendars are going to match properly. But in any case, we're going to take a group of musicians on a tour of Europe, which I got to discover pretty recently. They have as much affinity and as much enthusiasm for jazz as a lot of the towns here, like a lot of the Chicagos and the New Yorks and I'm not going to attempt to pluralize New Orleans, but they have a very strong following, and a lot of musicians are going to be in this position of touring in countries they've never been to and touring amongst audiences that grew up with their work. I mean, I've spoken to people in Helsinki who can say, they're in their 30s and they can say that their father used to be a member of a society that would meet 2 Sundays a month to trade rare jazz EPs. And you look at the point on the map they are, and you don't think jazz when you think Sweden or Finland or, God forbid, Estonia, Latvia, or Lithuania. You just think it's up there, it's cold, there's some people that might have designed a phone here and there, but you don't think tapping their feet and you don't think getting wild about the music. And they really are able to fill jazz clubs like nothing I've ever seen before. Riga, Latvia, the first time I ever heard a Latvian man sing the blues, which caught me off guard. You don't think of post-Soviet society as being particularly soulful. And you realize if you grew up with listening to it, maybe not surrounded by it day in, day out, but if you grew up and that was your chosen genre and that's what you were into, it's going to become part of you. It's going to come through you if you choose to get into singing it. And I didn't really know that until I started to book spots for this tour. I got to do a lot of traveling, and I got to see spots all around Finland, Sweden, Estonia, Germany, England, Holland, etc., etc. And there are places that really have the ability to pack in crowds, and that they're going to not just people who care to see jazz but will actually know things about the music. And we want to be able to bring this group of musicians on a tour where they're going to see just how widely they're appreciated so far from home, and get to see that, you know, your life of maybe you've had a royalty contract go bad, or maybe you've had a lawyer that ran off with more than his fair share, but you have touched the planet on some level. They're going to see enthusiasm that I don't think they're going to be ready for, and we're looking to capture that on camera. And of course, as we will be spending a lot of time with reflection on how they have lived their careers, we like the fact that there's going to be an opportunity of them being on a tour in a way where all of the memories can come rushing back, and the stories and the things that really grabbed them over the course of time, that, you know, the stories they may have told 100 times, but without a project like this would pass with them. And we want to be able to preserve them, and we want to be able to get the names remembered not as a tiny footnote to what jazz was in those days, but really, and jazz and popular music was in those days, but actually launched into sort of the pantheon of what these genres meant and what they mean today, and what they will continue to mean.